The cold open, a beast, unleashed. The alarm lights flashed red, loud sirens screamed across the alien station. Metal walls shook, floors cracked, voices shouted in panic, some high-pitched, some deep, all afraid. This was no drill. The prison wing of Outpost Helix 9 was under attack. Not from an army, not from a ship, from one creature. A creature no one had ever tamed. No one had even come close. They called it the Malkin. No one knew where it came from. It didn't speak. It didn't negotiate. It didn't stop. 12 planets had tried to kill it. 9 had lost whole cities trying. It could tear metal like paper and scream loud enough to shut down machines. It fed on fear. It grew stronger when others ran, and now it was loose. Steel doors bent like tin foil as the Malkin pushed forward. Its body shimmered with sharp, black armor. Long claws scraped across the floor. Its eyes glowed, a cold blue fire. As it moved, guards ran. Some fired their weapons, but the shots bounced off. Others froze in place, too scared to move. Behind a thick glass wall, Commander Arya Kale watched it all. Her skin was silver blue, her eyes dark like the deep sea. She had trained all her life in war, fought in 5 galactic campaigns, and studied more than 50 species. She had never seen fear like this. The Malkin was more than just a beast. It was a nightmare with claws. "What's the status?" she snapped. Her second officer, a tall insectoid named Vrix, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Containment is failing. Level 3 gone. Level 2 breached. Level 1 is next." Arya narrowed her eyes. "Send in the mechs." "We did," Vrix replied. The mechs were torn apart. A loud thud shook the walls again. Arya looked at the feed. The creature had stopped. It turned its head slightly, not toward a weapon, not toward a camera, but toward the entrance gate. She tapped the screen, zoomed in. A figure walked through the gate. One figure. A human. He wore no armor. He held no weapon. Just a dark jacket, simple boots, and a small case in his hand. His hair was messy, his face calm. Too calm. "Who is that?" Arya asked. Vrix scanned his pad. "Dr. Elias Wren, civilian, human, xenobiologist." "Why is he going in there alone?" "I don't know," Vrix said. "He was cleared by High Command. No escort." Arya stared at the screen. The Malkin took a step forward. Elias did not flinch. He walked slowly like he was on a quiet path in the woods. He opened the case, pulled out something small. Maybe food, maybe tech. Hard to tell. Arya leaned forward. "Is this a joke? That thing destroyed entire fleets. What's one human going to do?" Vrix said nothing. No one spoke. The Malkin stopped moving. It sniffed the air. Elias sat on the floor, crossed his legs, quiet, still. It was the first time anyone had ever seen the creature pause. Arya felt her heart beat faster. She had seen death in many forms. She had watched cities fall from orbit, walked battlefields covered in ash. But this was different. This wasn't war. This was something else. The feed zoomed in closer. Elias placed the object on the ground. A small speaker? A beacon? No, it was a stone, smooth and black, like obsidian. He touched it. It hummed, softly. The Malkin stepped forward again, slowly, and then it sat. The room fell silent. Every alarm still screamed. Warning lights still flashed. But inside that cell there was peace. The creature, feared by the galaxy, was now sitting only feet away from a human scientist, watching him, studying him, almost curious. Arya was speechless. She didn't understand. No one did. Every known tactic had failed. Traps, weapons, chemicals, noise. Nothing stopped the Malkin. But this human had walked in with a rock and a calm face, and survived. "How long has he been in there?" she asked. 3 minutes, Vrix replied. She checked the time. 3 minutes. That was longer than anyone had lasted before. Longer than most battle units. She turned to her team. Keep the feed running. Full record. No edits? And then she whispered to herself. He's going to die. But deep down, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure. The beast and the boy, long before Elias Wren stepped into that cage, before the alarms, before the galaxy whispered his name, there was only silence around him. He was born on Earth, yes, but not the Earth many aliens imagined, not the Earth shown in galactic records filled with wars, storms, and screaming news feeds. He was born in the quiet, deep forests, cold rivers, nights under wide stars, raised by a mother who never said much, and a father who once taught birds to come when he whistled. Elias never shouted to be heard. He listened. That was how he learned. In school, teachers called him strange. He didn't care for numbers or machines. He liked sounds, the hum of insects before rain, the rustle of trees when something unseen passed. When other students ran from animals, Elias walked toward them. He never chased, never threatened. He simply waited, and they came to him. So when Earth joined the Galactic Council, Elias didn't go to space for money or adventure. He went because he had questions no one could answer. Why did some creatures fear humans even before contact? Why did some beasts bow when humans walked near? The Council didn't care for his questions. They liked results. And results meant weapons, not whispers. Still, they let him join a Xeno study unit, low clearance, deep fringe, no risk. He didn't mind. He watched, learned, and waited. Then came the Malkin. The first attack hit a scout base on Morad Prime. 200 soldiers vanished. No warning, no survivors. The only thing left was a melted floor and a black stain. They called it an anomaly. A freak accident. Then it happened again. Different planet. Different weapons. Same result. Soon it had a name. Malkin. Not from a language. Not from data. From a sound. A sound it made before striking. A deep, rumbling tone that grew louder. As fear grew, the Council tried everything. Lasers, plasma, even synthetic minds. Nothing worked. The more they fought, the stronger it became. So they tried fear itself, putting it in the galaxy's most secure prison. A place with no sky, no freedom, no emotion. Cold steel and constant sedation. But the Malkin didn't sleep. It waited, and then it escaped. This time, the Council didn't want soldiers. They wanted answers. Why couldn't they stop it? Why did it seem smarter than they expected? Elias heard the call. They didn't pick him. He volunteered. The committee laughed at first. "You're not even military," one of them said. "You're not trained for this." "No," Elias had replied softly. "But maybe that's why it'll listen." They gave him 1 day to prepare. No weapons, no backup. He took a single black stone polished by hand, a family object carved long ago. No one knew why. But he did. It hummed when you listened. A deep tone, warm and slow. Just like the woods. Just like the Malkin. And so, as the galaxy watched through screens and feeds, as soldiers held their breath, and aliens mocked the little human walking into a death trap, Elias stepped forward, without fear, without pride, without hate. He walked like the storm wasn't real. He sat like he'd done it 100 times. And somehow, the storm paused. Back in the command room, Commander Arya couldn't understand it. She watched the Malkin tilt its monstrous head, claws twitching, but not striking. No rage, no violence, only a strange stillness. "This isn't possible," she muttered. "He's unarmed." But something about the moment felt old, familiar, like watching a hunter lower their bow because they recognized the animal in front of them. Not as prey, but as something ancient, something equal. Fricks leaned in. "What did he put on the ground?" Arya narrowed her eyes. "A stone." "Why?" "I don't know," she said. But inside she wasn't so sure. Because in that moment, 3 minutes into the impossible, she saw something that made her chest tighten. The Malkin blinked. Not a glare, not a threat. Just a blink. Like a child seeing something new. A new kind of intelligence. There were no words in the cage. Just breathing. Elias sat with his legs crossed, his spine straight, his hands resting gently on his knees. The Malkin, crouched a few feet away, was silent now. The air between them thrummed with invisible pressure, like the weight of a storm before the first lightning bolt. Around them, the wreckage of crushed steel and broken defense drones still smoked, but neither the man nor the beast moved to acknowledge it. They were watching each other. Commander Arya watched too, but from behind triple-reinforced glass, surrounded by a half-dozen silent officers. Her eyes had the cold calm of someone used to death, but this was something different, something ancient and strange, like a forgotten god stirring beneath stone. She could not take her eyes off the screen. The Malkin had not attacked, it had not retreated, it had simply paused. Vrick stood behind her, mandibles clacking softly in disbelief. "This should not be happening," he whispered. "I know," Arya said, her voice flat. "But it is." The Malkin had been studied, in labs, scanned by the most advanced AIs, bombarded with frequencies designed to enrage or subdue. Nothing worked. It didn't respond like a predator, or a soldier, or anything the Council had data on, until Elias Wren stepped into the cage. He had no translator, no scanner, no armor. He had brought a stone and a calm heartbeat, and something even more dangerous. Curiosity. Elias had always known that intelligence didn't always look like logic. It wasn't always neat, or efficient, or measurable. Sometimes it lived in movement, in silence, in how two creatures decided not to kill each other. So he didn't speak to the Malkin. He offered it a question. His posture was not dominant, not submissive, just neutral. A question mark, written in flesh and breath. The Malkin circled him slowly, claws scraping against metal. It made no sound, but something shimmered faintly, around it like heat rising from pavement. A subtle pulse. The same pulse Elias had felt once when a mountain lion stood near him in the California wilds. Back then, he had simply waited, heart steady, and the lion had left without a fight. Now the stakes were far larger. Elias reached into his coat and pulled out a small black device, barely larger than a coin. A vibration sensor, not a weapon. Not even a transmitter. Just a receiver, tuned to pick up micro-tremors and frequency waves outside standard hearing ranges. He pressed it to the floor between them. The Malkin stopped moving. The hum in the air changed. In the control room, red. Lights continued flashing and emergency lockdown protocols were on standby, but no one issued the order. Arya leaned forward, her breath shallow. "What is he doing?" Vrix asked. "He's not doing," Arya said. "He's listening," and he was. The floor beneath Elias's legs began to vibrate, softly, rhythmically. A pattern. The Malkin was emitting low-frequency pulses through the metal floor, not enough to break anything, not meant to harm. Elias adjusted his breathing to match it. His chest rose and fell in sync with the rhythm. It was a language, one never seen before, one never spoken. The Malkin tilted its head. For the first time, its claws retracted slightly. Its armor, usually rigid and sharp, began to fold inward, barely, subtly. A physical signal. A lowering of defenses. This creature wasn't just reacting. It was watching for feedback. It was learning. Elias slowly raised one hand, not in threat, not in command, but with a gesture so gentle it barely moved the air. He let his fingers tap the floor in a slow beat, matching the Malkin's pulse. Then, he changed it, just slightly. The Malkin froze. Its eyes glowed, brighter now, focused only on him. In the control room, Arya's officers began muttering, unsure of what they were seeing. She silenced them with one motion of her hand. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from the sense of watching something happen that had never happened before. "He's not taming it," she said quietly. "Then what is he doing?" Vrix asked. She swallowed. "He's proving he's alive. Not dangerous, not prey, not a threat, just aware. Just like it is." Outside the cage, the Malkin echoed Elias's beat. Then it changed it again, slightly, deliberately. Elias smiled. Just a flicker of a smile, not one of victory, but of understanding. There, in the center of a dead zone, filled with failure and fear, two minds, one of flesh and one of mystery, shared the first steps of something that looked dangerously close to trust. And in that moment, everyone watching realized the same thing. This was not a beast. This was something far more dangerous. This was intelligence, one unlike anything the galaxy had prepared for. Language without words. It began with breath, not words, not gestures, not shared data streams, but simple, slow breathing. Elias returned to the containment chamber the next day. He carried no tools. No stone, no gadgets, just his breath and silence. The Malkin was waiting, crouched low in the far corner like a coiled spring, but it didn't lunge, didn't scream. Its body moved with a slow pulse, its chest rising, contracting in time with something only it seemed to understand. Elias mirrored it. One inhale, one exhale. In the room above, watching through 6 layers of reinforced glass, Arya folded her arms. She'd watched thousands of encounters, diplomatic negotiations, first contact attempts, hostage standoffs. But nothing had ever looked like this. It wasn't performance. It wasn't diplomacy. It was raw, wordless presence. She couldn't explain it, and that disturbed her more than the creature itself. She wasn't alone. Across the station, personnel who had once mocked Elias's efforts now watched the surveillance footage on loop. Scientists, strategists, psychologists. Some were horrified, others fascinated, but none could look away, because something was changing. Each day Elias entered the containment zone, the Malkin moved a little closer. It didn't snarl, it didn't show its fangs. Instead, it began to shift its form, subtly, reshaping its outer plates, revealing layers underneath its exoskeleton that shimmered like liquid stone. These movements, at first mistaken for threats, soon showed themselves to be patterns, structured, deliberate, and beautiful. Elias began to copy them. Not perfectly, his body wasn't built for it, but he imitated with posture, with angles of his arms and tilt of his spine. Sometimes he drew symbols on the floor with a bit of chalk dust he brought in his palm. The Malkin would pause, stare, then respond, not with a mirror image, but with a variation. A reply. They were speaking, not in any language known to the Galactic Council, not in syntax or numbers or binary, but in tension, in rhythm, in movement and space. A language without words. Elias had a theory. He didn't write it down. He didn't need to. He carried it in the way he moved, in the calm he maintained. His theory was simple. The Malkin had never been a killer by nature. It had been trapped in a galaxy that spoke only in fear. It had screamed because no one had ever listened. Until now. Arya, despite her training, found herself staying later into each evening. She reviewed footage in silence, rewinding scenes again and again. She watched the way the Malkin's spines rose and fell, not with aggression but with emotion. She listened to the low frequencies it emitted, sub-bass pulses that seemed to shift based on Elias's breathing. She asked her analysts to map the pulses. They returned a diagram that chilled her. The vibrations matched human brainwave patterns, understates of empathy, reflection, and focus. Somehow, impossibly, the Malkin wasn't just responding. It was synchronizing with Elias. The beast wasn't mimicking. It was connecting. And something inside Arya began to shift. The steel-hard logic that had served her for so many years softened just slightly, with the weight of a question. What if this creature wasn't humanity's enemy? What if it was something far more dangerous to the Council? What if it was the first to truly see humanity? Elsewhere, rumors spread like wildfire. Some called Elias a fool. Others called him a prophet. Soldiers whispered in mess halls. Traders told stories on distant moons. The words changed, but the meaning was always the same. The human is still alive. He talks to the Malkin. It listens. And in the deepest places of the galaxy, where fear ruled and secrets slept, other species began to wonder. If the Malkin could be reached, what else had the Council lied about? On the fifth day, Elias did something unexpected. He turned his back to the creature. He sat, calm and still, facing the door. Vulnerable. Exposed. The Malkin approached, closer than ever before. In the control room, Arya stood without realizing it. Her breath caught. Elias didn't move. The Malkin reached out, not to strike but to touch. One clawed hand extended toward the human's back, hovering just inches away. It did not touch. It simply stayed there. And in that moment, an emotion flickered in its posture. Something ancient. Something that needed no translation. Recognition. When Elias finally stood and walked away, the Malkin did not roar. It did not follow. It watched. And in that gaze, even Arya, hard-eyed warrior of 1,000 battles, saw something that left her speechless. The Malkin was no longer the galaxy's worst nightmare. It had become something far more terrifying. It had become curious. The Council's ultimatum, the stars above Outpost Helix 9, no longer blinked. They stared, cold, unblinking, like eyes fixed on a crime that had not yet happened. The quiet of space pressed down harder than ever as ships arrived one by one, sleek, armored, silent. No lights, no colors. Just matte black steel and invisible weapons trained on the station's core. The Galactic Council had arrived. They did not come for study. They did not come for observation. They came to deliver one thing, a decision. Commander Arya stood at the edge of the observation platform as the lead counselor's voice echoed through the chamber. Mechanical, precise, stripped of all warmth. Her people stood behind her, still and silent, like statues waiting for cracks to form. This experiment ends. The creature is not a candidate for containment or diplomacy. It is a threat, an unrepentant biological weapon. And now, this Elias Wren has become part of the problem. Arya didn't flinch. She had expected this. What she didn't expect was the deep, quiet anger rising in her chest. She had fought for the Council for most of her life. She had burned cities in their name. She had silenced rebellions, destroyed enemies, erased species, and yet standing there, replaying the footage of a man sitting calmly beside a monster who chose not to kill him. She could not deny what she had seen. This wasn't madness. This wasn't luck. It was connection, and the Council feared it. They did not fear the Malkin's claws or screams. They feared what it had become. Reachable. A being capable of learning, thinking, feeling. Because if the Malkin could be reached, if it could choose empathy over destruction, then the stories they had told for decades would unravel. The Council didn't want peace with the beast. They wanted it dead. Arya stepped forward. He's communicating with it day by day. You've seen the tapes. We've seen enough, the counselor replied coldly. We're authorizing orbital sterilization. Full energy sweep. The entire sector will be cleansed in 30 hours. Prepare your evacuation. She stared at the screen. Her hands were fists. No. Silence fell over the chamber like a dropped blade. What did you say? The voice asked, flatter now, heavier. I said no. Arya repeated, louder this time. You sent us to understand the threat. Well, he's doing it. Elias Wren has done what no fleet, no AI, no weapon could. He stopped the Malkin without force. You should be studying him, not threatening him. The Malkin is a symbol, the counselor replied. A symbol of everything we cannot control. If you allow it to live, it becomes hope. Dangerous hope. Unapproved, unaccounted for. You are ordered to comply. The transmission cut. The room went still. Fricks moved beside her, his claws clicking anxiously. They'll erase everything. The creature, the human, all of us if they must. You know that. Arya nodded slowly. Yes, I do. She walked away from the chamber, down quiet halls through locked corridors toward the deep core of the station, where only she had clearance. Her boots echoed softly as she walked, her mind running faster than her steps. She opened a secure channel. The screen flickered, then showed Elias, alive, calm, seated cross-legged once again in the observation cell. The Malkin loomed behind him like a shadow, but not menacing, watchful, present. I assume you heard? Arya said. I did, Elias replied quietly. You have 24 hours before they burn this place to the ground. He didn't flinch. I'm not leaving. She blinked. You'll die. Maybe, he said, but if I leave now, it'll die too. And the message dies with it. What message? Elias looked past the camera for a moment, like he could see through time. Through fear, through the centuries of silence between species and blood. That we don't need to fight everything we fear. That intelligence doesn't have to mean war. That even the most terrifying thing in the galaxy might just be looking for someone who listens. Arya's throat tightened. She had heard soldiers scream. She had given orders that erased cities. But nothing had ever struck her as deeply as the quiet certainty in that human's voice. And the worst part, she believed him. Then what do you need? She asked. Elias didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just said, time. The breakthrough time was a luxury the galaxy never gave. On the 24th hour, the countdown began. The black flagged, ships of the Galactic Council aligned in silence above Outpost Helix 9. Their weapon systems, sterile, invisible, flawless, came online one by one. Each was powerful enough to melt the crust of a planet. Each was aimed not at a nation or a fleet, but at a single creature in a single room, and the man who refused to abandon it. Inside the containment chamber, the air was still. Elias Wren sat, with his hands on his knees. His eyes were closed, his breath slow, steady, as it had been for days. Around him, the Malkin circled. It no longer growled, no longer hissed. It moved with the grace of something ancient and heavy, like it had lived 1,000 lives but spoken in none of them. They had passed beyond mimicry now, beyond observation. They were dancing in the dark, exchanging meaning through pulse and posture, drawing shapes in silence. Elias no longer needed machines. He didn't need scanners or charts. He had learned the Malkin's rhythm not with intellect, but with instinct. He had trained his heartbeat to follow it, had taught his body to read its silences, had let go of language until only feeling remained. And the Malkin had changed. Its armor, once jagged and dark, now shimmered with faint blue veins of light. Its limbs moved with less weight, as if it had unburdened itself. It no longer filled the room with pressure. It shared it. Held back. Responded. It was no longer a weapon. It was a question. Outside, Arya paced the command deck, her fists tight, her voice hoarse from arguments. Every backdoor she'd tried to delay the council had failed. The kill order stood. The weapon systems were charging. She had 30 minutes, maybe less. She opened a private line to Elias. The feed crackled, then cleared. Whatever you're doing. It's not enough, she said. They're going to fire. I know, Elias replied. His voice was calm, almost tired, but underneath there was something else. Resolve. Then I have one last chance. Arya stared. You can't stop this. I'm not trying to stop it, Elias said. I'm trying to give it a choice. He ended the call. She stood frozen, the silence around her louder than any alarm. Down in the chamber, Elias stood for the first time in hours. His legs shook. His body was exhausted, but he stood anyway. The Malkin watched. Elias walked forward. closer than he had ever dared, close enough to feel the heat radiating from the creature's core, close enough to die in half a heartbeat. He reached out, not with a weapon, not with control, but with vulnerability. His hand shook. The Malkin lowered its head, and then it changed. It began to vibrate, not just physically, but on every sensor across the station. Walls trembled, lights flickered, frequencies surged through the structure in waves. In the observation decks, glass windows rippled like water. Elias did not flinch. The Malkin opened its mouth, but did not roar. It sang, not music, not words, but sound, low and vast, vibrating with such depth that every AI interpreter collapsed under the strain. Patterns poured into the systems. Geometry danced in impossible forms. Engineers screamed as their data models cracked under the pressure. Of meaning. It wasn't just noise, it was communication. Ancient, raw, alien. A voice not made for language, but still, somehow speaking. And then, against every protocol, against every rule of reason, against the full weight of her training, Arya heard it clear. Not through speakers, not through her translator, but inside her mind. I was alone. Until him. She staggered back, her heart hammering in her chest. The room fell silent around her. No one else moved. No one breathed. Then, screams erupted from the upper decks. Council fleet is powering up. 10 seconds to impact. Elias, still in the containment chamber, turned slowly. He looked at the Malkin. He said just 4 words. Now it's your choice. Outside, space rippled. The Malkin raised its head. The glow along its body intensified. And in one massive burst it unleashed a wave, not of heat, not of force, but of resonance. The pulse tore through every broadcast tower, every long-range comm array, every targeting system on the Council fleet, not destroying them, rewriting them. And for a moment, the fleet stopped. They saw what Arya saw, a creature once labeled death incarnate, standing still, a man beside it, and peace between them. The ships powered down, not by command, but by choice. She was speechless. The silence after the pulse was unlike anything Outpost Helix 9 had ever known. It was not the silence of defeat, nor the stillness of death. It was deeper, a silence of understanding, stretched across a station built for war, and now paused at the edge of something unspoken. Every console had gone dim. Every system had halted, not in failure, but in reverence. Above, the Council ships floated in their perfect formation, untouched and unarmed, disabled not by weapons, but by choice. They had not fired. In the command deck, Commander Arya Kale stood motionless. Her hands, once so sure, now hung at her sides. She did not speak. Her eyes, always calculating, now searched for something else, something beyond tactics. For the first time in her long career, she had no orders to give, because there was nothing left to command. The screens flickered, then stabilized. The feed from the containment chamber returned. But the chamber was empty. The door, which had never once been opened without force, now stood wide, gently parted, as if by invitation. There were no alarms, no breaches, no trail of destruction, just the soft hum of a system breathing again. Elias was gone, and so was the Malkin. All that remained was a single mark on the floor, an impression scorched into the steel. Not damage, but a symbol, a flowing curve that none of the station's records could translate. Yet somehow, when Arya looked at it, she understood it without needing to. It was not a word. It was a goodbye. The Council made no official statement in the days that followed. They issued no punishment, no blame. In typical fashion, they buried the incident beneath layers of silence and misdirection. The logs from Helix 9 were sealed. The crews were rotated out. Life moved on. But something had changed, not loudly. Not with fire or thunder, quietly, subtly, like a breath shared between strangers. Rumors bloomed in the void. On the edge worlds, Merchant ships whispered of a man and a creature seen together on fringe planets, protecting the weak, chasing off, raiders never staying in one place too long. They left behind no signs of violence, only strange frequencies in the soil and stories no one could quite explain. He walks with the Malkin, some said. No one owns it now, others whispered. It chose him. And Arya? She retired from command not long after the incident. Some said she was disgraced. Others said she had gone soft, but she didn't mind. She had seen something most never would. A myth unmade. A monster understood. She kept the symbol from the floor, etched into a silver pendant, worn close to her heart. Sometimes when the stars were clear and the galaxy quiet, she'd sit alone, with her thoughts not haunted, not afraid, just still. And when people asked her, pressing, curious, insistent what really happened that day, she would pause,